Good to see you guys again. I'm sure y'all missed me like I missed you guys, but it's that time of year again, spring practice. Excited about getting started with this football team, the 2018 football team, the guys that are here and the guys that will be practicing. This spring, like always, will be about, fundamentals, techniques of playing the game, the blocking, the tackling, the throwing, the catching, the attention to detail, and trying to develop the players that you have on your roster. And it will also be about developing our guys to fit the scheme, or our scheme to fit our players. We have a lot of new coaches on this 2018 football team, 5 new ones on defense, and then the new offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, Dave Johnson. A little bit of change in special teams, with Coach Gibson heading that up and different coaches being in charge of special teams. So, this spring will be a lot like usual about developing your players, but it'll also be about, developing your scheme with your players and your coaches and finding who fits. We will be a little bit limited this spring practice. Obviously, we had 23 seniors graduate last spring. We've had 4 guys, since the bowl game that would have been seniors that have decided to go ahead and graduate. They will graduate from Colorado State, that being John Freishmuth, Marcus Wilson, Trey Smith, and Colton Foster, who did have another year of eligibility, but they're going to graduate this spring and be seniors. And then we got a number of injuries. Obviously guys know about Colin Hill, who was injured a little over a week ago, had surgery Wednesday and is doing good. Will not be at practice today, but will rejoin the meeting starting tomorrow. But, on offense, we got other guys that are out, like Jeff Taylor, who will miss, half a spring with a surgery that he had this offseason. Hopefully we'll get him back in a couple weeks. Ben Knox is out right now with a shoulder issue that's could be out the whole spring. E.J. Scott, receiver that tore his ACL the week before the first game last year, will still be out this spring. We'll be doing limited stuff on the side with our trainers. And maybe doing some individually, hopefully, before spring is over with Coach Whitted, but his own schedule. Tyler Smith had all-season surgery, will be out this spring, another receiver. And Marcus McElroy, running back that ended up missing probably 3/4 of the year last year due to a blood clot issue, will still be out the remainder of this spring and hopefully cleared at the end of April, ready for this summer, but feel good about him. Defensively, we got 2 safeties that are out, and Jordan Fogle and Jamal Hicks, 2 guys that started a lot for us last year. Christian Cumber, a freshman with red shirt at a corner, had an ACL injury, is out. Then Toby McBride will still be out dealing with back issues. Not ruled out completely for the spring, but right now he is out on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis, depending on what the doctors say. Then Emmanuel Jones had an off-season surgery. Hopefully we'll get back the latter half of spring. He'll be out there today. He'll be running around doing individual, but he's out. So that's a lot of guys. When you graduate a big class and 23 guys, really 27 if you add those 4 guys, and you've got as many injuries as we have. So a lot of guys out, but we still got a number of guys here that are on this football team that we're going to coach. We're going to implement our scheme and our fundamentals, and we're going to go to work on a day-to-day basis. Questions? Well, I think that's too early to answer, Terry. That's obviously the goal. Anytime a guy gets an injury, is to rehab him, as fast as possible, where he's in good health and he can play. If there is a silver lining, it happened now instead of, a month from now or in fall camp. It happened right now, so we'll see. That puts us at about 5.5 months, I think, before the first game, with the first game being, in week 0. So it's not out of the question, but it's definitely a long rehab. I know his mindset's right, but you can only go as fast as your knee will let you sometimes.
How would you feel about your quarterback's development behind him anyway, and how much of that work has got to get done?
Well, it was going to be a big spring for that position anyway. Colin had not taken hadn't played since his first year in Game 4. He had obviously practiced some, but it was going to, he was a little bit rusty, and now it was going to be a big development for those 2 guys behind him, making sure they got a ton of reps, some with the first team. We were going to have to find a guy that we felt good about being the backup going in, and now, Colin's out of the equation. So, it's these two guys, the focus will be on them, and they'll have a lot of opportunities, which they've been having opportunities since they've been here. The spotlight will be on them and see how they handle a little bit of pressure.
What are the chances that your starting quarterback for the Rocky Mountain Showdown isn't on campus right now?
Well, we're actively recruiting. As I said, I believe after our signing day, that we did not sign a quarterback in this class, and we would actively recruit a quarterback this offseason, and we're still doing that.
What was your first reaction when you heard about Colin's injury?
Well, I was heartbroken for the young man. It's a lot of times when your phone rings, at night or early in the morning, it's bad news, and sometimes there's the bad news off the field that you don't want to hear, and then you get the message or talk to Tony Hill, our trainer, and just heartbroken for that kid, how hard he's worked. He's really had a great offseason in our fourth quarter program. He stepped up as far as being a leader, a vocal leader on and off the field. Really, he breaks it down before practice, after practice, or the workouts, not necessarily practice. And it's just one of those things that happens, and you can't put a finger on. You could say, hey, he shouldn't have played basketball. He should live in a bubble, but I don't have that policy. Guys can get hurt walking down the street. It's unfortunate. He's got a long rehab ahead of him, but I know if anybody can come back from it, it's Colin Hill.
What was your message to maybe team or him for being off the field, of staying healthy and watching what you're doing? But you said you don't have a policy.
Yeah.
Do you kind of control that, or do you just kind of let it happen?
No, we always talk about doing the right things off the field, but it's more a behavior issue. These are guys that are trying to, do some extracurricular activity and play basketball and do something fun. I'd rather be doing that than doing some things off the field that they shouldn't be doing. My message to the team was that things happen. The next guys, they got to step up. Talking to the other guys, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, we got to go out there and play with confidence, and we got to exude confidence in the next quarterback that's up. We can't come out there with our head down, especially to some of our receivers. We got to come out there confident. You got to focus on what you can control, and that's your job. We'll coach the quarterbacks up. We'll get somebody ready to play, and we'll get somebody ready to execute in our first game.
Mike, that was kind of the thing, the next question, the confidence level. How confident are you in the quarterbacks you have if you're not able to bring somebody new in, that one of those guys can lead the team this season?
I'm gonna be confident. That's why we practice. It's I don't even know what the day is. It's Monday. It's the 19th. It's March 19th. It's a long time before our first game. The only thing I can control today is the meetings that we had this morning with those quarterbacks, the meetings that we'll have this evening, and then the practice. And we'll take it day by day, one by period, and we'll try to get those guys able to function and help lead this football team. And then we'll have to do things around that quarterback of what he can do and what he can handle. There's a lot of offense that you can run. There's a lot of offense that we've ran here. There's a lot of offenses I've ran at the other place. We got to figure out what we can do as an offense, and we were going to have to do that anyway. We lost 3 offensive linemen. We lost some guys on the outside receiver. I mean, we were going to have to figure out who we were, and spring practice will be part of that, trying to figure out who we are up front, who we are on the outside, but then always in the back of your mind as a coach, offensive, defensive, specialties, we all know that we're going to have over 20 guys coming in fall camp. So that's why spring a lot of time is about fundamentals. We got to realize that we got a lot of guys out. We got to focus on the fundamentals and the techniques of playing football and getting our guys being able to function within the scheme of whatever scheme we decide we're going to run. So right now I'm not panicking. I mean, it's not good news, but we don't make excuses, just like the players don't. I'm not going to make an excuse. We got to get somebody ready to play.
What was it that you really wanted to see in JC's development and Judd's development?
Well, all right, JC. All right, I'll take each quarterback. JC Robles has got to be more accurate passer to play in this system. He's got to be better fundamentally with his feet, and he's got to play confident. And part of that comes in with getting more opportunities and more reps. So he's got to take it upon himself to be confident, and not necessarily how he plays, but how he projects his voice, how he talks to his teammates, how he leads. And, he's going to be put in that situation. Last Friday we had, some stuff on the field where he had to lead his teammates, and that's what I talked to him about before practice. I said, don't be quiet. You're the guy. You got to speak up. They're going to follow you. So it's just being consistent at that position, being an accurate passer. There's different things JC can do that we'll explore to see if JC ends up being the guy that we might have to go that route. Justice McCoy, he's put on about 20 pounds since he got here last fall. I like the way he looks physically right now. Is going out and putting it together, processing information for Justice. Taking it from the meeting room to the drills, to the team situation, to the scrimmages. How fast can he process it? And then Judd Judd has gotten a lot of reps in individual and one-on-ones and pass skill. Hadn't had a lot in team situations, and that's usually the case with a kid that gets redshirted his freshman year. So how's he going to handle those situations? Judd and Justice are pretty much the same. How do they process? And then it's going to be taking care of the football. Number one thing you can't do as a quarterback is turn the ball over. So it's making good decisions and being productive when you're in there.
Obviously, with Nick's time in the system and football savvy, the playbook, I assume, was pretty much fully open with him. How much do you have to kind of start to alter things with inexperienced guys?
Well, it was already trimmed down a little bit to start spring practice because of the new linemen that we'll have playing up front and the couple injuries that we had, offensive line. So we're playing a lot of guys that were this spring that will be in the starting lineup that were redshirted last year and didn't get a lot of reps. Plus, you have a new offensive line coach that's got different terminology for his calls, whether a guard and center are working together, or tackle, guard. So we didn't want to put a lot in from that standpoint. And so I would say it's pretty basic for that. We cut a little bit because of the one quarterback going down, but not a lot. We were already pretty basic. Same thing defensively. We want to install our scheme and make sure that we understand what we're doing, how to do it, the terms, and then we'll take it from a day-to-day basis. Now, we have an install for today. We've got one for Wednesday. We've got one for Friday. But, not just the quarterback, but really up front. If we can't handle it up front, we might not go to our day 2 or day 3. Same thing for defensively. We've got an install for each day, but if we don't feel like we've mastered that or they don't have a complete understanding of it, offensive or defensive, then we'll put a hold on part of your install and make sure you've got it before you go to the next day. That's the great thing about spring ball. You don't have a game this week coming up. I mean, if you finish day 1, you've got a day in between to watch the film and you got time to meet as a staff, you can say, all right, we're going to hold on this. And then, we obviously got a lot of guys, so we don't need to get too I'm going to go back to you probably every spring practice press conference I've done, you've heard about blocking, tackling, fundamentals. It will probably be more so for this spring than any because of the young guys we've got playing, the new coaches we've got, and just making sure we're all on the same page before we turn the next page.
Coach, you talked about in this spring trying to figure out how the schemes can fit your players. With JC, we haven't seen him throw. Mm-hmm. With Justice, he was kind of a dual threat kind of guy.
Right.
Can that mean that your offense might change in that way if one of those guys is your quarterback, that maybe they're more? And
I would say this. I would say probably JC's more of a dual threat than Justice McCoy. I think Justice is probably labeled that, was mislabeled in recruiting. He's more of a passer in the offense that he came from out of high school. But yeah, that what you're trying to do. First, you're trying to find an identity as your football team. What are we going to be? Where's our leadership coming from? What makes us tick as a football team? And then you're trying to find one offensively, defensively, and special teams. What's your identity? And a lot of times your identity but depends on who you are as a football team. Are we a two-back set? Are we a heavy run team? Are we a play action? Are we having to go fast tempo defensively? Are we aggressive blitz and attacking style? Does that give us the best chance to be successful? Or is it playing coverage defensively and you never want to say bend don't break, but play assignment football and rally and play with great effort. So you're trying to figure out what you are as a team, and then sometimes that's hard to do when all your pieces that you're going to play with in the fall aren't here. So that's why, this spring is going to be more about the basics. I know we're going to run zone as an offensive football team. I know we're going to run quarters as a defensive football team. We're going to run some single high man free. So we're going to work on those things. And then what we do off of those things, that will probably be determined at a later date. We'll have an idea after spring ball, but then you got to realize you're going to have I mean, right here, that's 21 guys coming in, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, there's 33, 34 scholarship guys not in spring ball. With the freshmen you're signing and the guys out. So you got to realize that a big piece of your football team's going to come in the fall camp. And, and that's been my message to coaches. We're not panicking. We're not playing a game. You coach, the most important thing for us today was be prepared for your meeting this morning and make sure the guys you're coaching can line up and understand what you're teaching them, and they can go out and execute. And if they don't execute what you went over in the meeting, you correct it. Either on the field or in that next meeting the next day, and we try to get better at who we're coaching.
Given that you had to replace 5 coaches and you have so many inexperienced players practicing this spring, have you reached out to any of those 23 graduating seniors about maybe coming in as a graduate assistant just for continuity's sake?
That's a good question. I think they could help. A graduating senior, somebody who was in this system, could help our guys from a standpoint of they understand who I am and how I coach. But you've got one totally different scheme defensively. Offensively, the line is a little bit different. But in saying that, Fred Zerbelis will be an offensive graduate assistant for us who played offensive line under our system. So I think that's good that he's here. He's Dave Johnson's right-hand man right now. Nolan Peralta is a carryover from last year. Defensively, Trent Matthews is back, and you'll see him out at practice today. Working with the defense, and then Deontay Clyburn will be a graduate assistant in the fall. He's here, but he's not in the graduate program yet. So when he gets in that program, then he'll be allowed to coach. So those will be the 4 guys that are graduate assistants, and that helps because these guys have been through it. They went to school here, and a lot of times it's not necessarily the playbook aspect of it's doing things right all the time, from how do you show up in your meeting, of how do you take care of your body when you're not here, what do you do when you go to class, how do you study film, how do you handle your responsibilities in the academic center. Sometimes those guys are good for that because they've been through it in this system at this university, and they're guys that can help encourage those guys just get through. Being a regular student sometimes here at college is pretty tough for guys. Not necessarily football players, but sometimes being a regular student and learning how to find your way and not go to class but be successful in class.
You mentioned this briefly about the 3 offensive linemen graduating who were starters last year. What are the biggest things that you're looking for in both the backups who are returning this year and those newcomers who are coming in?
Well, we got to, I say this every year, we got to find 5 guys. We got to find the best 5. And, right now it's understanding, what Coach Johnson wants from those guys and how he wants them to come prepared for meetings, how he wants them to attack individual, what he wants from a tackle on the backside of his own block, on the front side of his own block, what does he want from the guard, what does he want from his center, communication. It's the little things that play in that position. And they're going to play we're going to have guys play tackle and guard. We're going to try to keep from flipping them right and left. Some guys will have to play right and left, but it's learning how to play within the scheme of our blocking rules. And it's how they improve on a daily basis. There's going to be, some bad days. Could be some bad couple of days. Could be some bad weeks. But you just keep coaching them. You keep coaching them. You keep teaching them. You keep until they, you can't be stubborn as a coach. You got to find ways to teach them and give them ways to be successful. But you keep demanding. Mark Rick always said you get what you demand, and we're going to demand every day that they come ready to go and they have an outstanding day with an outstanding attitude and realize there's going to be some setbacks, but we're going to continue to get better because that's the way we're going to coach. I told our office staff the other day, 2012 spring ball, I don't think we got a first down all spring. We lost a bunch of guys to graduation, and I thought we were going to be terrible. I'm the most negative person in the world, but we just kept practicing, kept working and got a little better toward the end of spring. And then by the end of the year, we were a pretty good football team just because we stayed after it. And that's what we got to do. We got to figure out, you can't just right now on day 3 or day 5 say, this is what we got to be offensively or this is what we got to be defensively. You got to coach the fundamentals. You got to master that first, and then you go from there.
Off of that, does it amplify what you have to do with rebuild the offensive line when you lose an all-conference center like Jake Bennett, guy that made line calls for you? Does it just make it a little bit tougher to do it?
Yeah, well, it does, but I do think if I'm looking at the positive side of it, well, we've got a new offensive line coach that got some new calls, so now it's, everybody's kind of starting over a little bit mentally of how we call a certain block, and now the guy that, where before somebody might have known a little bit something from the previous way we called something, and if the center's making a call, that's not right. Now this center's going to be like a veteran almost, because he's going to be the most experienced guy, Colby Meeks, and the other guys aren't going to really know what should be called. They're going to have to listen to him, if that makes sense. There's not going to be a lot of carryover in terms of terms. Now, there's carryover of way you block a zone, whether you're scooping backside or cut, reaching front side, but the terms that they've got to listen to will all come from Colby. So I think that will help him establish himself as the vocal guy on the offensive line. Now, whether he's going to be that leader that Jake Bennett was, that's yet to be seen. Now, we need him to, but I can't just say Mike Brohart's the leader of our team. It doesn't work that way. That the leader they have to have influence, and Colby's got to be a guy that has influence on the offensive line. Hope he does. We'll find out. If it's not, it might have to come from somebody else. I can't just say, hey, you're the leader because this guy left. That isn't how it works. Guys are going to follow guys with influence, and if a guy doesn't have any influence, if I try to make him a leader or captain, it isn't going to work.
In your opinion, how tall a task does John have in rebuilding a defense, and does it help that it's a new staff and a new system that he's?
Well, I think our guys are excited. I think when I say excited, I think they're excited to go out and have a fresh start. You can look at, change is hard, change is difficult, but it's all, on the other side, it gives guys a fresh start where they might have been, in the doghouse or behind, they've got a chance to come out and establish new habits with their coach and put positive thoughts in their coaches' minds about how they go about their work every day. These defensive coaches are excited. They're, a brand new staff. They've got a new scheme. They're all on the same page, and I think the kids are. And we got to go out and we got to see. It's going to be it's a challenge for all of us. It's a challenge for any team across the country. Every year when you start over and you've got a new task, and if you're thinking, well, we're going to be pretty good because we had this last year, we're not going to be any good because we weren't any good last year. That's not how it works. I think you've got a new mindset every year to work and to get better and learn from your mistakes, and that's what we're going to try to do.
I think you've kind of addressed this, but actively recruiting a quarterback, it's 5 months till the season starts. If you get a guy in here or in your pursuit of that guy, how willing are you to be adaptive of your offense for that quarterback?
I'm gonna play the best
or
guy,
vice
Terry.
versa?
I'll be adaptive. If we sign a guy that comes in here and is the best guy, we'll put him in position to be successful and do what he can do. And there's 10 other guys around there, but the quarterback is the trigger man, and you got to find ways to help him be successful. Sir? In this offense, yes. Yeah, I'll be yes. Yeah, I'm up there watching Tennessee, Georgia, because, the last time I went against Janzik today, I was watching a bunch of his cut-ups, just how they played certain things, and, totally different team last year at Georgia than what we were the last 2 years here. We change every year depending on what we've got and what we got to do to be successful. And there's ways to highlight the quarterback, and sometimes there's ways to take the ball out of his hands. It makes it a little tougher, when you do that. But we'll figure that out. Right now, it's J.C. Robles, Justice McCoy, and Judd Erickson. Kid that's I can't pronounce his name. We call him Sal, another walk-on. That's the guys we'll be coaching today. We'll worry about that in the future.
Preston Williams, Braylon Scott, are they both participating?
But they will be practicing today, yes.
Do you have any position changes that go along with the defensive side?
Robert Allegani is moved back to corner. He'll be a corner and play some nickel. Him and Darius Campbell will be battling for the nickel spot, and then Robert will also be working. All of them will be competing for the corner spot, but those two guys will work at nickel. Manuel Jones, who was an outside backer for us, has been moved to a defensive lineman. He came back at 260-something pounds. He's a big boy right now, and I don't know how big he's going to get. He might play some backer, playing some 21 teams, but he'll be a defensive end for us. Do we have any others, Paul? That you're aware of? Not. Really, the main guy was Robert going to defensive back.
Mike, with all the changes, the limited roster, the coaching changes, how do you avoid this being kind of a setback, rebuilding kind of year, or is it just something you're going to have to accept as?
Because the only thing I'm focused on is today. I mean, and that's not trying to be a smart ass, but I can't. I mean, I don't ever go into a year thinking, hey, we're going to rebuild, or I go into a year, hey, I think this is we're going to win them all. I mean, it's focusing on today and trying to get better today. I mean, I think our goals have not changed, Kelly. It's to compete for our conference championship and win the conference championship. And to win, our rivalry games. But it's not talking about, I'm bringing that up one time with our team today about conference championships. It's about, it's a new year, and the most important day is today. And really that's the same message over and over. We start worrying about what we don't have, or thinking about how good we're going to be, or what we're going to do. We're never going to accomplish anything. We got to focus on today.
With Toby McBride.
I'll let y'all just pick that, and hope everybody picks us last in the conference.
With the way Toby McBride's season played out last year, can you get a redshirt year for him from last year?
Yeah, because he did not play after 4 games last year, so he's entitled for a red shirt. He's still having some issues with his back. He had a second opinion last week, and we're going to send him off and get another opinion, just trying to decide what direction. He's not completely comfortable right now. We don't want to put him out there if he's not completely comfortable or completely healthy with going out there.
Speaking of the redshirt process, the NCAA's got, I think they'll vote on it next month, whether or not you could play 4 guys at any time or play the guys at 4 games at any point during the season and still use as a redshirt year. Do you like that rule, and how could that be beneficial for you and the players?
Well, I think it's extremely beneficial. One, it keeps guys' morale up throughout the season. And no matter what you say to a guy or how many stories you've told them about guys getting redshirted and turned out to be All-Americans and led their team to championships and played at the next level, kids tend to feel like almost a failure that at that point, and then you end up getting over it because practicing. But this, keeps them motivated throughout the year. Obviously, with injuries that come up throughout the year, we're already a thin football team. Depth is always a concern for us and a lot of teams at our level. And to be able to pull a guy, not necessarily pull, but have that ability to play a guy late in the season. When normally you would have said if you didn't play him after 4 games, he's going to redshirt. Now, if you got an injury where you're only going to be down for 1 week, all right, and now I don't have to sit there and say, I really don't want to pull this kid's redshirt for a week, possibly 2, knowing when you get back, he's not going to play again. Now I can play for a week or 2 weeks, and it gives you that flexibility as the season goes on. And then if you don't play a guy, and then toward the end of the year, I think it can help on special teams, which numbers also get you. What were you going to ask me?
Do you think it can speed up a player's development? Because you always say the best experience is playing in a game.
Yeah.
Just give him that
No,
time. You're not costing them a year.
There's no question. I think it keeps them more engaged throughout practice. They know that we say it, hey, you're competing, to play, but sometimes when that point of no return passes and they know they're getting redshirted, it's hard for them to practice like they're going to play. Now the great ones do, but sometimes a little motivation that I might get in the game this week will help them develop a little bit more than practice. And then it might be they run down on a kickoff for the last 4 games, or they play in a third down package on defense, or they're able to get 4 or 5 snaps sprinkled in. That experience will carry over into next year. If I played, I had some confidence. I did some things in the game which will give them confidence going into the next year.
You've often praised BC Johnson for how hard he's worked and just the type of effort he gives on and off the field. Is he a guy that you expect could maybe step up and be a number 1 type receiver now that Mike is out of the picture?
Well, he's going to need to be, and BC has prepared and practiced like that since I've been here. And I think he's a guy that's improved each and every year, and I think he'll have an opportunity to be the so-called number one receiver. It's kind of not like the pros where you got a number one, number two, but it's kind of looks that way the last couple of years that obviously some balls were directed, and some balls will probably get directed BC Johnson's way because one, he's got seniority, he's done it in the game, he's been very productive for us, so we're going to need him to to play well this year.
How beneficial is it to have guys like him and Izzy just who've been around and have
Yeah.
played under you for so many years?
Well, these two guys are in our system since I've been here for 4 years. Both of them played as freshmen. Neither one, Izzy played more than BC, but that little bit of playing time, BC has that's a great example. BC might have one catch or two catches, one catch his freshman year. And played a little bit, but he could have been a guy you probably could have just only played 4 games and had a red shirt, and then he'd have 2 more years. But that little bit of playing time that he had playing, he only had one catch, but he played and played on some special teams, gave him some confidence going into the next year. And they've been in this system. They understand this system. They understand what we want. They understand how we want to work in the offseason. They understand how we want to practice. So those two guys I expect to lead this football team. They're two of our leaders on the football team, and they've grown in a role where they're able to be vocal with our football team because of the way they work and the respect they've earned. So they've earned some influence because of who they are and the way they go about their business.
You've had some years where you've come to spring ball, you didn't know who your leaders were going to be, and that doesn't appear to be the manner this time around. Can that help? I mean, when you're bringing in new systems and things like that on defense, does that translate well, that leadership?
Well, I think it always does. That's something that I talk to the team about as a whole. That's something Coach Johnson's talked to the offense. That's something when sitting in the defensive meetings, Coach Jansen's talked about is, we've got to have leadership. It's your football team. You got to take ownership of this football team, and that's in everything we do. And it's something I'll talk about tonight before we go out. And what we expect, and it shouldn't be what I expect, it's what we expect as a team and what you leaders expect of this football team. And, losing a guy like Colin Hill hurts some leadership of the football team. He's going to kind of be out of the picture for spring ball, being able to lead, because it's hard to lead when you're, in the training room. He's going to try it. He'll be in meetings, and he'll be encouraging, and he'll be vocal, but it's not the same. So guys like BC and Izzy, Adam Prentice is another guy for us that has leadership skills and has influence on this football team. Defensively, Coach Jansick has been talking to, the two senior linebackers, Josh Watson and Trey Thomas. They've got to step up and they've got to lead this football team. Obviously, Jordan Fogle and Jamal Hicks being out is going to hurt, but, been talking to Josh about stepping up in that role. And those guys are, like I said, they're excited. They want to play better as a defense, and we got to realize it's not just talking about it; it's going out and working and putting in the work that coach expects and they should expect at every practice.
How many numbers do you have for the roster? Do you have enough to give the spring what you want it to be done?
We're gonna have to be, it might be a little bit different in how much we can do against each other and how physical we can be. I don't know if we will be able to have 3 full scrimmages, where we have over 125, 150 plays and then have a long spring game. It might have to be structured, where it's more, half a practice and then a situational scrimmage. That's something that we'll have to see as spring goes. Right now we've got enough numbers, to practice and to be functional. There's guys that, over 3 deep at every position. Now some of them are walk-ons, but we're going to coach those guys up. I think we just got to be smart as a coaching staff. I said in the defensive meeting this morning, the defensive coaches talked about how we want to practice and how we want to tag off and how we thud and how we tackle, and all that's important in how to take care of your football team. But we can't go out there and practice scared. We can't go out there and just practice in helmets, all spring, because we got to learn to block. We got to learn to take on blocks, playing with our hat and hands, and we got to have some tackling situations. But if thud's done properly and bringing your feet, you can actually rep tackling, but there's nothing like the real thing of having some live situations. So they'll be mixed in. But we just got to be smart as coaches. We got to be smart going against each other that we take care of our players too. each side of the ball.
Mike, you mentioned Christian Cumber had a torn ACL. What's his time frame? When did that happen? What's it look like?
That happened, probably 4 or 5 weeks into the season during a scout period. It happened, and he had surgery a week or two later. He's ahead of schedule, looks good. You'll see him out there running on the side. So he'll be cleared for fall camp, and EJ will be too. So I feel good about both those guys, but it's not worth putting them out there in any kind of situation.